In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Max.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. I'm back being a hippie this week.
Yay.
Imagine that. How's everybody doing tonight?
I'm feeling hippie-ish myself.
I like the shirt. So we're here to discuss episode 8 of The Expanse as we continue reviewing adaptations from one form to another. Max, what can you tell us about this episode?
Well, the episode's called Salvage. Rocinante finds a derelict vessel that holds a potential devastating secret. Holden and his crew end up crossing paths with Miller and Eros, and Avasarala receives bad news.
Yeah.
It was written by Robin Veith and directed by Bill Johnson.
Awesome. Thank you. What did everybody think of this one?
I like this one quite a bit.
I do too. It's 2 episodes in a row I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Max?
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. I gotta say, this is probably one of the creepiest episodes of television on a show that is not a horror show.
This had a horror feel, this particular episode did. And I agree, it's not a horror show, but this episode had that feel for sure.
The first squeak of fear, as it were, that I had was as they're coming around the asteroid, which looks just like Ultima Thule, by the way, from another angle. As they're coming around, they see that cavern with the stealth ship. The stealth ship sitting there, I saw that and just like shiver went up my spine. I'm like, yeah. It was
You're just like, is it going to do something? You know?
It was so creepy just sitting there. And, you know, it's this massive asteroid just floating through the solar system, and they're hiding in a little cavern within it. And it's just like a little hint of Empire Strikes Back. You know, I'm sure they got an idea from Empire Strikes Back, but this is just, gave me the heebie-jeebies.
And the whole time they're on the stealth ship, the whole thing is it's just horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get those vibes at all.
Really? Okay.
Are you a horror fan?
Well,
oh yeah.
Okay, so
you know, it depends what you think of. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, slasher type, but you know, it has that just like creeping dread, you know.
You know, for me, I'd say the creeping dread is more like you hear a child's laughter at 3 a.m. and you don't have children.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm just full on panic if I hear that myself, but
yeah, that would kind of creep me out.
Now, if that happened on that ship,
that would be even worse.
I think Amos would flee.
Yeah, you just start shooting, maybe. I don't know. But no, Amos handles himself really well in this episode. We'll get to that.
Although he does start a firefight.
I don't think
he fired the sure shot.
Well, he saw what was coming. He was reading the room.
So did Kenzo, and you could say Kenzo keyed it all off by running.
Yeah. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So let's talk about some changes. Now, I felt like overall, this episode was closer to the source material than a lot of the episodes we've seen so far.
In what ways?
Well, I mean, just like basic, you know, I guess maybe more towards the end of the episode. I mean, we're bringing the 2 groups together on Eros, the whole firefight and finding Julie and, you know, Miller, you know, connects with his friend Sematimba. And so like, there's less book material that is being adapted, and all of that is kind of follows that same sequence. So, I mean, the big thing I thought was, of course, the going to the Anubis and investigating the ship. So there is a good chunk of the episode there that is different. That didn't happen in that sequence of time. They go directly to Eros from Tycho Station.
Or Tycho Station, right?
Yeah. Instead of doing the going to the stealth ship first and then that leading them to Eros. So, I mean, that's a big change. I would say I like that change quite a bit.
I do too.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to say for changes that I liked. You know, the whole, as creepy as it was, the whole Anubis, or Anubis, as two characters like to say,
As we're
Miller does it too.
Yeah.
I liked all that as much as it gave me the creeps, which
yeah, but it should.
Yeah, but I'm not a fan of being given the creeps, so I think it's weird that I like those changes.
I mean, I don't like horror as a genre typically, but like a horror sequence or horror elements in something else, I do like when it's done well. I appreciate it. I just don't really go for like horror movies, mostly because they're pretty dumb for the most part. I mean, let's just be honest. So like that whole thing is, you know, when it's done well, I enjoy it, but the genre is just like pandering to the lowest denominator, so it's usually pretty stupid.
That sounds like me on comedy. I mean, I like comedic elements in my shows, you know, but I don't typically watch a comedy, you know, TV or film. It just
so much like that just encompasses so many things though.
And here I'm thinking my favorite genre is horror comedy, so
okay.
And that's why we work well as a team, because we all have different tastes. I think I put together a good crew, and it's going to get even better in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, I liked that change with the whole Anubis. It was fun going back to that ship, and it helped me piece together in my head a bit better what happened, how Julie got, at least on the show, how Julie got from where she was to Eros. I don't know if that's where the I'm not going to say the name of the company, but the people who own the stealth ship, I don't know if the people who owned the stealth ship parked it there, or if they just left it drifting somewhere as they died in the engine room. Because I think some of the crew of that ship was in the engine room, not just her friends. And then so I don't know if they parked it in the asteroid or if she parked it.
She did, I believe.
I think she did it. Yeah.
I think so too. And part of the reason I think that is Alex's comment, nice parking job, or hell of a parking job. We know she's a great pilot.
Plus, I mean, she would be the one, well, I guess they both not want the ship found, but I'm thinking of her motivation, like she knows that the thing on the ship is a danger, and she's trying to limit that,
she shut down the energy down. She figured that bit out.
Yeah.
But see, I think it's just as easy that the ship's crew parked it there and left, leaving her for dead with whoever was in the engine room being absorbed. And then
would they like she took the
there was only one in the show.
Yeah, and I mean she took the shuttle to Eros, so I think they're all dead.
It's quite possible, you know. I'm still confused, even on the show after having seen it all, exactly what happened. But it's also been several years since I watched seasons 2 and on. Yeah. So I'm still trying to piece it all together. And I don't know how much of this element of the show, you know, like her parking or the asteroid being where the Anubis was parked and her leaving from there. I don't know how much of that is actually what happened off screen in the book or off page in the book. So
yeah, some of this just left open to we don't know.
So
it's like we don't know about the glass cats. We don't know. We'll never know that story.
Yeah. So like this change we're talking about with changing the Anubis storyline from before instead of after.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence of whether I like it or dislike it.
Okay.
They're both about equal in my book, but on the one hand, you have by doing it after, they already know about this protomolecule stuff going on, so they know to not turn the engines on, that kind of thing. But by putting before and then changing some of the horror elements, because the body's absorbed into the engine was kind of what they call in horror terms body horror.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't really get that in the show with that.
Have enough of it in this episode at the end.
At the end,
Thankfully-
but not in Anubis.
No,
Yeah, I
thankfully,
mean, I
we
felt
should
it,
have
but
seen it in the engine room on the Anubis, but
We got more of a growth versus a bunch of bodies grown into it.
yeah.
yeah, you don't
So
have
they-
the full sense of it. I guess that's true.
Yeah. So had they done it after, it could have changed the rating of the episode to more horror, more
Mhm.
gore, something.
TNA.
So by making it more for TV friendly, they just saved that for the end of the episode.
Mhm. Yeah, which is that's a,
Although they did get pretty open with their ratings on this show in later seasons.
And after Eros, you see the engine room makes 100% sense why they're like that. But before, it kind of gives away a little bit too much if they had shown the bodies literally in it, just like Julie.
yeah, yeah.
And I am so glad they did Julie's hybridization the way they did, because if it had been closer to the book, I don't know if my stomach would have handled that.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Because-
description is pretty nasty. I
Even
mean, it's
with
bad enough.
changing the protomolecule from poop brown to black and blue
Black and blue.
glowiness, even if they had kept everything else about it the same, just change that, it still would have been like to me, because it was described like horrible, and
It was disgusting.
it didn't look pleasant on the screen, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I was afraid it would be.
Yeah, we've talked before about the change from like brown to blue was a good choice. I
Yeah.
continue to think so.
Visually, it's just going to show up on screen a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's
It-
just more
it-
distinct, from body fluids in general. Like, I mean, you could conceivably think of brown things coming out of people, but not blue things.
No, and except your veins, but they're
But
not going to
the-
glow.
No.
Nothing coming out of your body should glow. If it does glow, you might want to get a Geiger counter,
Yeah, yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's not supposed to happen.
All right, so let's talk about, I guess, well, before I have some, notes on other changes, but other things that any of you particularly liked.
What we see is
changes.
Semi. I like, first of all,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember the actor's name. I think it's Kevin Hanchard. If Max could check that out, playing Semi. He was one of the stars of Orphan Black, which is one of my favorite science fiction shows of all time. Played a cop on there, weirdly enough. I liked how the relationship is different. It's not that they worked together on a case.
Mhm.
Semi used to be his partner back on series,
Mm.
on the show.
It is Kevin Hanchard.
Hanchard, Hanchard.
Yep.
Yep, that's what I thought. Hanchard. Yeah, he played. I don't remember his name. Who's the guy that's got the Coast to Coast AM Coast to Coast show? Talks about aliens and all that. It's got the exact same name as the character on the show had that guy's name. I can't remember it offhand, but I just remember thinking it was funny.
And it looks like his name is spelled like Sema Timba.
Yeah.
Semi Timbo.
right.
Semi-
So,
Semi is sort of like a nickname that gets. I
Yeah.
don't even know if that's used is it used in the show? I
Yeah,
can't remember.
we never
Oh.
hear Semi Timbo. We only hear, as far as I remember, we only hear Semi.
Oh, yeah, you might be right. Yeah, but in the book it's Sematemba. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just looking up the name, like two different spellings.
Yeah.
yeah. I like the name. Semi Timbo is a cool sounding name. I might
Kinda
steal
badass.
that. I might steal that.
Yeah, so I gave them a kind of like shorthand with each other, like, they clearly know each other better.
Yeah. And
So
that
we can-
hat,
And the hat, yeah,
Semis,
was.
might actually look better on Semi.
So that was interesting to me too, because the hat was his. And in the book, Semi is a belter. It's not really stated in the show, but I always thought of that hat as like an earther hat. So I don't know if Semi's supposed to be an earther in the show, maybe.
Maybe. I do know Miller says he wears it to keep the rain off his head.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
sure
a
he
bit of-
does.
bit of an earther attitude right there, but
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's I think it's supposed to kind of connect to, you know, Miller working for an Earth Corp and sort of trying to blend in, and like, you know, he's left some of his Belter side behind him. And so, but I mean, you know, they can change him to an Earther, that's fine. It would just be kind of funny that he's had a couple of Earther partners. But
Miller really has, what's the word when you take into yourself the racism that's toward self, he's taken on the anti-Belter racism.
Yeah, he's the self-loathing.
Yeah, he's clearly doesn't like Belters. I mean, he's calling them skinnies all the time, you know, and I always got the impression that that was a rather derogatory term.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely is.
So, yeah, and you know, it's like a black cop hating black people, you know, is kind of what I see Miller being, but he's a Belter cop hating
Belters. Yeah.
So for whatever reason, I always assume, like in the book and the show, that those that actually live on these asteroids or whatever else are like, they're Belters, but they're not necessarily the same as the Belters who are actually in the spaceships between.
Where do you think they live? Where do you think they live when they're not on a ship?
I'd say a lot of them are on ships, though, like more than they're on an asteroid. Like you have people actually living on Ceres, and then you have people who are basically living on ship or on stations, like Tycho.
I mean, I don't think they're making that much of a distinction. Like there might be some, like, you know, subcultural differences or whatever between those groups, probably.
I mean, you could kind of look at like those on Ceres are, you know, the urbanites.
Yeah.
And the ones in the ships are the truckers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's alluded to a little bit in the scene where Miller, at the very beginning, when he's talking to the Mormon and, you know, talking about how he's never been off Ceres.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that scene. It played out a bit different than in the book. It was close.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean,
it was interesting.
We don't know what denomination that missionary was. I got my computer talking to me. Did you guys hear that?
I did, yeah.
Sorry about that. No, on the show, they made him a Mormon. In the book, we don't know what denomination. And I guess it kind of makes sense since they're already tying in with the Mormons. I mean, we've got the Nauvoo. We had that kid trying to do comedy night. You know, and
I completely forgot in the book they didn't say he was a Mormon. That's so funny.
The only denomination that's mentioned in that conversation is Miller used to be a Methodist.
You're right. You're right.
So
that's interesting. But of course, it would make sense to tie it into the Nauvoo. So yeah, make him a Mormon. Okay. So any other like changes that anyone particularly did not like?
Yeah, there's this guy named Kenzo Gabriel.
You're gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, he was more annoying in this episode.
Yeah. I looked up the guy, the actor. He does a lot of voice work and motion capture. As a matter of fact, he did a bunch of motion capture for the Expanse. When the UN Marines were attacking, when you saw the UN Marines at some point, he mocapped them.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that had to do with the Anderson Station storyline a couple episodes ago, because I don't remember UN Marines any other time in the season.
I feel like so I've told you I listened to the podcast Ty and that guy, and they talk about him a bit. Elias, they mention him frequently. So I don't know if I think it's like, you know, the acting community in Toronto is, you know, people know each other and stuff. So and that makes sense. I'm trying to remember what they would say about it. I think maybe he was someone that they wanted to work with, and then like they had to like find the right role for him.
He was a friend of Cass's and suggested him for the mocap. He was already cast in the role of Kenzo.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, this guy's a friend of mine. He also does motion capture and voiceover work. Because if you look at his IMDb, like 2/3 of it is voiceover.
Okay. Well, anyway, I think the actor's good. I think the character is supposed to be irritating. Like I just think that's his thing. So and I don't mind him too much, but I don't know if he seemed as necessary in this episode, I guess.
No, he was sort of dead weight. I mean, it gave Amos some interesting conversation. You know, when the two of them were on the CIC or bridge or whatever. You know, I didn't. I hate to admit it, but I did kind of like the way he and Amos interacted. And I just don't like him. But like you said, I'm not supposed to. So.
Yeah. Max, do you have something?
No.
No. I don't have anything major either. I mean, I will just bring up, I guess, so, you know, we've added a couple of Fred scenes. The main gist of it is, I mean, it ties in a little bit to Avasarala scene, but also the main gist of it is he's trying to figure out this Martian code. And at the end, they find out what it means, but it's not really communicated, like what he's looking at the end of the episode. It's just like he sees something, and it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that last surprise, we don't know.
So that was a bit of an odd choice. Like, I just felt like maybe it was supposed to like up the stakes a little bit in the episode, but I'm not sure it really did that. And it was fine, it didn't bother me, but I'm not sure if it was really serving a huge purpose in the episode.
Right.
To be honest,
the sad part is I've seen episode 9 twice, most recently a couple weeks ago. I don't remember what it was he saw in that shot where they're like, you know, I'm like,
I'm not sure it's important, really. So
see, I got the impression it was, but I don't remember.
I think it's supposed to be, but I'm just saying in the actual narrative of the show, I'm not sure it is that important. Like, I do think, it's supposed to be something big, but
I don't remember what it was. So, and that's
I
only,
guess we'll talk about it next week, but
that's a month ago that I watched the entire season.
Yeah.
So
that's my only kind of negative. It's nothing like really bad, but I'm just not really sure that is serving a major purpose in the episode. It's fine. Didn't bother me, but
since last week's episode through to the end of the season, they're all really good episodes.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have much complaints about any of the changes.
Yeah.
In these
what did
episodes.
you guys think about? So one other change from Miller is that when he gets to Eros, he's looking for Julie specifically. Like, he's not looking for Holden and the crew, he's looking for Julie. So rather than like waiting around for the Rocinante to show up, he goes and like has that scene like with the Dockmaster. Is that what it is? The Dockmaster? Yeah. So any thoughts on that change?
It works. You know, I don't object to it. I mean, the motivation in the book for going to Eros made a bit more sense. Well, worked for me a bit better, but I mean, on the show, it still makes sense because he knows Julie is supposed to have gone there.
Yeah.
I'd say in the show, no one really knows he's alive. Holden's really alive, right?
Right. Only
except for his mother and Avasarala.
I think it's not well known that he's alive. Yeah.
There's a few people who know he's alive, but they're all people who keep secrets.
Right.
So, like, taking that in context, there's no way Miller would know Rocinante is heading Eros.
Not on the show, no.
Yeah. And, you know, right, as we know, they had no idea they're going to Eros until they found the ship.
Right. Good point.
So by like just taking that connection out of, you know, Holden's, you know, alive.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the system doesn't really quite know he's alive. They may or may not. They had to work in somehow to get them both
give
together.
Him another reason. I mean, I find it perfectly plausible that Miller would go to Eros to track down Julie, and that he would rough somebody up to try to like get information about Julie. So everything about that was perfectly plausible.
If anything, I was just trying to think of when I was watching the show, it just seemed weird that all of a sudden Holden arrived at the hotel. It seemed like I missed a scene there. Like I fell asleep for like 2 minutes or something. And they arrived at the station, all of a sudden they're at the hotel.
There was a little bit more in the book about like, you know, like I think they might be like at the casino level in the book, and there's some conversation
Holden and Naomi hating the casino, but Amos loving it.
Yeah. But like in the show, it just seemed like the jump, like did I fall asleep for 5 minutes and miss a scene where they land on a station and walk there?
You know, in honesty, there probably was a scene or two that got cut on you know, during the edit.
It just
and the same with Miller.
Crucial. Yeah.
And the same with Miller, him just appearing there, like Did he know to check at that hotel?
I mean,
No, he got that from Semi.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
They went
That
to
was
eat.
set up.
Semi got him out of jail, the
Mhm.
jail cell. They went to go eat. Semi gives him his tablet phone, whatever they call it, unit, terminal,
Mhm.
whatever. And
Hand
on there
terminal.
is footage of Julie.
Okay.
And Semi says she's checked in, or the Blue Falcon under the name Lionel Polanski.
Yeah.
And Miller takes off running.
Yeah.
I must have missed a like 20-second scene.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm seeing Holden standing around doing nothing, waiting for this guy to do something, and then all of a sudden a shootout happens and Miller shows up. Like, what the hell?
I like that somehow when I was watching it, like I mean, you obviously know that Miller is coming there, and like you kind of know it in the books as well. I mean, but in the show, I'm like so like focused on what's happening that I wasn't like expecting like Miller to like burst in and do anything. I was so that was still like, oh yeah,
Well,
that's
here's
what
a question.
gonna happen.
Did he fire any shots before we saw him at the hotel? Were those couple of single
Miller?
shots from Miller before he came out and whacked the guy's arm when he was about to throw the grenade?
Oh god, I don't know. I wasn't watching to
'Cause-
like track that down, but
I don't know. I just
don't
wondering
think so,
about
but
that.
I don't know. Have to rewatch
Because
really
the
carefully
timing,
to
the
catch that.
timing works out right, and it was a different set of. It sounded like a different kind of gun than what we'd been hearing. Like boom, 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 and then this was just like boom, 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 boom. And it's just like, is that Miller taking a couple of really slow, deliberate shots?
So one other potential change I was just thinking about was on Earth with Avasarala, that
Mhm.
the other guy, I can't think of what his name is. Basically, they wanted an assassination mission against Holden. They
Yeah.
pretty much said, especially he's going to get killed in a thing by a tragic accident.
Yes.
Do we know if that was in the books Earth that did that, or was that the corporation?
I don't know.
Um,
I'm not sure who
we don't have
attacked him at the
any.
hotel.
Yeah, we don't have any of the like perspective in the book about
Okay.
that. So I don't think it's stated.
Yeah. On the show, I think the people who attacked him at the hotel are probably the Earth Hit Squad. Probably. But I'm not sure. They could be working for blank or corporation
Yeah.
who somehow knows, because they've got spies elsewhere, everywhere. They would
Yeah.
somehow know that Holden and company are alive.
Let's see.
Could
I
have been
mean,
CPM.
I think, you have that little scene where like Kenzo's walking in and you see through his vision.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I take that as he's like alerting.
Well, yeah, he
Yeah.
snapped that picture. You saw it on a terminal
Yeah.
later on after the fight scene,
Right.
after the
So,
shootout.
yeah, I think they make it reasonably.
Because Kenzo's
Clear.
working with Earth, right?
With the Earth, yeah. He's
He
not
was-
alone.
Wasn't he the spy on Tycho Station that like Avasarala was trying
Yeah.
to like
Yeah,
appropriate?
he's
and,
that
yeah.
spy. He's on loan, breveted over to the UN.
So yeah, I'd say he's definitely why they were able to show up where they were at for the hit squad to find him.
It just
Mhm.
seemed like they got there awful fast. Because I got the impression that shot he took with his eye camera was literally just outside the door to the Blue Falcon.
Mhm.
And
And
like
they show up quick,
2
yeah.
minutes later, the hit squad gets there from
They
like,
were ready to
all-
go. I guess
They knew
I
where to
mean,
go, apparently,
Yeah.
It's probably one of those situations of they already kind of knew where he was at. He was
Yeah.
probably sending them info of where to go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because I don't think Eros is that small.
No, but I mean, for all we know, he's been like sending them like
Since the moment they
images
got there, so
all along. I mean, we only just saw the one. I mean,
That's a good
what seems
possibility.
plausible to me. All right. Well, I think that kind of covers our major changes here. I think now it's time to talk about our standout scenes, good and bad. So, does anyone have a favorite scene in this episode?
I'm gonna go
Just a
back.
shootout.
I knew Max was gonna say the shootout. That doesn't surprise me at all. I'm gonna go back to the creepy stuff at the beginning, searching the Anubis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm purposely
stuff.
saying it that way too. Just because Miller and Amos say it that way, and it makes me giggle. Yeah, I that was the stuff that stood out. That was the highlight for me. I mean, the absolute highlight of the episode is that first shot of the Anubis hiding there inside the asteroid. That just, like I said earlier, that made me jump.
I mean, the whole thing is kind of like half the episode, but it is really good stuff. Like it's a strong sequence.
And it didn't help that I watched it in a dark room. That just makes things creepier.
Yeah.
So,
I actually have to kind of agree with Max. I mean, for me, it's mainly the lead up into the shootout, not when the guns are actually blazing.
It's when Kenzo keeps looking around and Amos
it's Amos really, like, because he is fully aware. He's just taking in every detail of everyone in that room, and he's not missing one single thing.
No.
So he knows right before it happens, he knows it's about to happen. And he's prepared. He's preparing himself.
Yeah,
and
I mean, you show him slow.
It's beautiful.
I don't know why he had his gun inside the zipper, whereas in the book it's in a pocket.
Yeah.
Everybody else had it stuffed in somewhere except for Naomi, who didn't even carry one.
Right.
So, a few episodes back, we had that scene where they're in that bar, and he noticed that the guy had a knife on him.
Yeah.
From across
he warned the other guy.
Yeah. From across the bar, he spotted a knife in the left hip or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, his observant trait is very good at this kind.
Oh yeah.
Let's see.
And it just, the whole scene has that tension, and I mean, a lot of it is the way that Amos is reacting to things, and
the directing was great.
Yeah, it's just, I think that's a really strong scene. So that was my favorite too.
The episode is really strong. There's not a scene that I don't like.
Yeah.
In the episode.
So what are they going to give Amos his own like TV show instead of Chris Pratt for action?
Yeah, it would be nice to see Wes Chatham get it. Chatham, how, I don't know how it's pronounced.
I think he says Chatham.
Okay. Anybody's better than Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
But that's Chris Pratt's just, well, I don't even want to go into Chris Pratt.
But anyway,
whatever.
It's just
I don't want to prattle on about Chris Pratt.
I was saying he's been overused in a lot of stuff. They had a bunch of other shows. Was it Reacher recently?
No, that's not Chris Pratt.
I wasn't saying that was Chris Pratt. I'm saying other shows like Reacher with different actors.
Yeah, that's the guy who played Hawk in Titans.
And I can't remember his Gray Man in action show. The one with Ryan Gosling.
I just for the first time today saw the name mentioned for a show.
So if it's an action show, it's Ryan Gosling, and I'm like, I don't know.
That's interesting.
Give this guy an action show. He needs it. Well, I just have to mention that Rowan Atkinson is a great action guy, especially in John English 2. Greatest chase scene ever.
Really? Okay.
Greatest chase scene. It's a parody of what do you call it? 007.
Right.
The new guy. They had this one chase scene. They did a parody of that, and Rowan Atkinson had a great action scene making fun of that.
I haven't seen that yet. I'll have to. I did see him play Doctor Who a while back. It was not a canon sketch. It was like for one of those Save the Children type charities they have over in the UK that they do like a television thing for. And Doctor Who's traditionally done that.
So back to the Expanse.
What's the Expanse?
Does anybody have a scene? Well, we kind of already said no. There weren't any scenes we didn't like, right? So we don't have a hated scene. I'll only just say, and I this isn't a serious one, but like the very scene at the end where we see Julie's body, like I kind of hate that because it's kind of horrifying. But I mean, it's supposed to be, so it's not too bad.
I kind of get a kick out of the fact that it's Amos who identifies all the smells in that room.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that smell? Sweat. Stink, and ozone, and he said ozone with a question mark. It's like,
that was, it was very interesting Amos stuff in this episode. So
I love Amos. It's just that episode last week, even though that was one of my favorite episodes so far this season, he just didn't. He was below everybody. He was down to a 7 out of 10. And that with this show is kind of shameful. Everybody's usually at an 8 or a 9.
So speaking of that, who are our top picks for actors this week? Always. Yeah.
I mean, he kind of hit this. Miller was in a really interesting state of mind. And it really was very apparent when he's after the shootout and he's talking to Miller and he was telling him that, you know, there's going to be a bunch of thugs coming through, this time with badges. You touch me again, there'll be another body. And he said it in just this, it wasn't intimidating. It wasn't scary. It was like,
yeah,
he's got this, I think he knows he's going to be dying soon.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
He's
He's not usually
almost
like that.
He's in a Zen state, I think, in a way. In a weird sort of Zen.
Dark Zen.
A dark Zen, where he's comfortable and he's come to grips with.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's kind of lost everything except one thing.
Julie.
Yeah.
And now he's lost Julie too.
Right. Though, you know, there's other things he holds on to here. But
he
yes,
kind of gets more of Julie though too.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So yeah, Thomas Jane had another very good episode.
And she's always good.
Yeah, and that kind of goes without saying. But she didn't have a lot to do this episode. Hers was, you know, minor.
You know, obviously mine's gonna be Amos.
Yeah,
episode.
I was gonna say Amos is probably the next, but you know, nobody else.
He was my pick for the West Chatham because there's just so much subtle physical acting that's happening, and that, you know, he was what sold that scene leading into the gunfight. And
Kenzo did a lot of that too.
Yeah, I mean,
Kenzo,
little.
Kenzo was doing all the exact same things, other than getting ready to shoot. He was doing all the exact same things that Amos was doing.
Yeah.
He knew what was about to happen. He knew that each of these people came in was an agent, you know, and that they were all packing and there was about to be a firefight.
Yeah.
Did Holden or Naomi do much of anything in this episode?
Nobody did much of anything, in my opinion, except Miller and Amos.
I mean, yeah, because a lot of this episode,
she had one scene.
Yeah, she had one scene. Yeah, no, I don't think in terms of, yeah, it's a lot of like we're slowly and quietly investigating this ship, or, you know, I mean, there's just, you know, it was an interesting episode in that regard. But
should we give a shout out to Kevin Bundy, who played the Mormon?
Yeah, sure.
He was good. What was his name?
He did.
Kevin Bundy.
Kevin Bundy? Okay.
What a perfect name for him. Yeah, no, he did a good job too.
As long as his first name's not Ted.
Fair. All right.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be much for anybody this episode except for Thomas Jane and West Chatham.
Yeah, they had the most to do.
So I was just on IMDb here looking. They apparently have a name for the assassins. Goth Assassin number 1.
Oh.
And Prostitute Assassin.
Prostitute Assassin.
What were the two old creepy men that looked like they were flashers?
I would have to go to the full cast on that.
Because those two old guys were really creepy.
Goth Assassin number 2, Hand Grenade. Thin Man Assassin.
Thin Man Assassin.
Weird. I don't see that guy being goth, but okay.
Yeah, I prefer Steve, you know, but
Steve, absolutely. And when in doubt, just name them Steve.
Yep.
All right, so
can you guys see the Aiel hiding behind me?
No, can't see it.
Good. They're doing their job.
Absolutely. Is it just one? There might be more.
They said Aiel, that's plural. It's also singular, but it was plural in this case. They're rarely alone.
Yes. All right, so I think it's time to talk about themes. And I personally felt like there were kind of a few different kind of like mini themes. I didn't necessarily find like one big overarching theme to the episode, but there were a few things that were in there. But does anybody else want to go first, or should I?
Go ahead.
I can only think of 2 just offhand.
Go for it.
If tension can be a theme, that was a theme.
Yeah.
And the second one is probably loss.
Loss. Okay, so talk about that one a little bit more, maybe.
Well, obviously at the end of the episode we have loss. You have Avasarala's loss.
Mm-hmm.
They lost the Anubis by blowing it up.
That was fun though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they get the safe off? I don't remember.
I think they did.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought that was the scene that we saw where they were moving it. Yeah.
Because I know they have a certain package later on in the show, like the only ones left with a certain package.
Yeah, I think
I wasn't sure if that was it from there.
I think
or not.
so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Got a little moth flying around my room.
I'm sure you can make an argument for like purpose being somehow a theme in this,
Yeah.
because Miller has lost his multiple
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. I kind of went in the direction on that with like a little bit of a theme on faith, which we saw in that scene with the Mormon, and because Miller is sort of, he's showing his lack of faith there, his doubts and his fears about, not finding anything out there.
He also
in the
shows
universe,
signs of losing his skepticism, because when the missionary said, "Do you have a problem with that?" or something like that, and he's like, "There was a time." Paraphrasing, he said, "There was a time I would have."
Right.
So
yeah. And then with Miller, at some point, he says to Samatimba that he believes in Julie, and that's all he has.
So he has a
that is his belief, his faith is really in Julie at this point, and that's it. So I think there's a little bit of a theme there on that. It's mainly around Miller and whether he has it or doesn't have it, but we're looking at a little bit of a broader view with the Mormon guy. I guess somewhat, again, pulling from that same scene, really, there's a little bit of a theme of like, are we alone? Because again, his fear is that we are, and the Mormon doesn't believe that. But then when you have the scene where we have a proto-molecule encounter, that's also, it's like, Holden and Naomi coming to confront the idea that they're confronting something that to them feels alive. So it's that unexpected, we are not as alone on this ship as we thought we were, kind of thing.
And that stuff was all over that ship.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the reasons why they switched the design of the proto-molecule, is so that you could see it in dark rooms, like on the ladder.
All those little shots of the little
when there's
tendrils
like
and
hiding behind a ladder and shooting through the lungs at them over here. You can see it growing up this way, and it starts lighting back up
the
after
blues coming in.
the original appearance. You wouldn't have been able to see that. It wouldn't have worked.
Not at all.
Did you have any others?
I have one other, and to me, I think is probably maybe the bigger theme in the episode, which is, I sort of had two ways of putting it. One is like collateral damage, and the other is just basically like, damn the consequences. So it's two ways of saying the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
So, for starters, I would say, Julie herself, everything that's happened to her, like she's collateral damage in everything that happened with the proto-molecule so far. And Miller, as Samatimba says, is going to pull on her thread no matter what. So that's sort of the damn the consequences. Like, there could very well be more collateral damage of him doing that, but he's going to do it anyway. I think there's a little bit of that when they make the decision to destroy the Anubis. Kenzo's trying to say, hey, you would control something really powerful. And, so that's a potential, Holden saying, I don't care, like, I don't want this, the potential, damage and, is too much.
He had two really good reasons to blow that ship up.
Yeah.
Payback. Even if nobody was on the ship, payback the freaking ship itself.
Sure.
And
he said it, remember the can.
Yeah. And then getting rid of the proto-molecule.
Yeah, which I think is the main thing. Yeah.
I don't know how effective nuking the proton molecule is, considering I don't know if we know on the show. I don't think on the show we know yet that it thrives on radiation.
No, we're just hinting at it because it likes the reactor, and
right.
then you know the reactor was turned off. Yeah.
So, but having listened to the book, I know that radiation is something it likes. So maybe you helped it out by nuking it. I don't know. I don't know what its tolerance for incredible heats is.
Yeah. But yeah. Unclear, I guess, at this point. But either way, I think that kind of fits into that theme there. And then there's also a lot of it in the scene with Christian. I mean, her friend was collateral damage, the friend who killed himself. And he was
reported to have killed himself.
Yeah. So she shows a willingness to risk conflict with the belt, right? Like Souther is objecting to that, and she's just like, it's done, we're moving on, you know. So that may not have been her choice, but she's willing to accept, you know, that potential consequence or collateral damage. But she does not want to risk that for Holden, right? She's arguing against, you know, killing Holden. She's not ready to let that go. So that's a consequence.
She's met his mother.
Yeah, or collateral damage that
argue for killing the son of a woman you just spent an hour with.
I mean, I think that is part of it, and I think that she also had her own reasons going into it, because I mean, she went there in the first place because she wanted to understand him. Like, she has a sense that he's an important player at this point, and she is not willing to let that go. So,
you know, my only thought on that is her in the last season, would she, knowing what she knows then, want to go back and say, just do it?
Get rid of him.
Yeah, she might.
I actually think there's quite a few points along the line where she might have been regretting that, you know, she might have changed her wish at that point. But anyway.
I always got the feeling he was her least favorite of the Roci crew.
Oh yeah, he annoys the crap out of her the most.
She loves Amos, I think.
Oh yeah, they're pals.
Amos just calls her Chrissy to her face, and nobody else does that.
She lets him get away with that.
Yeah, even her husband doesn't do that.
For sure, her favorite.
Yes.
She's probably not that fond of Naomi either. You know, the whole Belter thing, but
yeah.
But no, I think Holden annoys her. So anyway, we're getting
season
way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we're getting like 4 episodes.
That's what I had on themes. So Glenn, what do you want to add?
I was going with the faith thing. And it wasn't, it was the Mormon missionary had his faith. You know, as we said, you know, it looks like Miller kind of has faith in Julie Mao. And that's just gonna get even more supernatural in a way down the road. And Alex has faith in the ship, because when they're talking about, you know, don't shoot those things have a habit of shooting back. This time we have guns too.
Yeah.
You know, it was somewhere in there. It was talking about the ship. Yeah. He's like, we got guns too. Alex loves that ship.
Yeah, they're besties. Yeah.
He has a lot of faith in that ship, and he's proving that he can pilot it. Unlike what the MCRN military brass said, you know, they didn't think he had what it takes to fly a combat boat, but he seems to be handling it fairly well. I didn't really see any other faith in there. I didn't have a lot of luck finding much in the way, you know, thematic wise this episode. And I'm sure it's there. I just wasn't seeing it. I mean, nothing that hasn't already been brought up. Yeah. But for me, the big one that I was thinking about as I listened and watched is faith, and that, you know, I think it's an important one because it starts the chapter off, like the Miller chapter on the people mover to Eros. It goes almost right into the conversation with the guy sitting next to him, not across from him, but not a big change. That's irregardless. But it does put the guy closer to him in the book, so it's more of an intimate conversation than what we see on the show. But yeah, this was, ironically, as much as I think it was one of my favorite episodes and one of the better episodes, it was a little thin on thematic, work.
Like I said, I mean, I see that there's lots of little things in there. I didn't see, like, all the themes that I had were not necessarily connecting to all the different points. The closest being, the last one that I went over. But
it's like that episode where I had like 30 of them.
Yeah.
And I just listened. They were all just
mini themes, yeah.
But they were all tied to one. There's like 30 different themes or examples of themes, and like one, it's just like, that was a heavy episode.
Yeah.
So, kind of a random thought on the theme topic here.
Yeah.
Is since this episode had a lot of scenes that actually happened in the books, would you say that this show has had more themes in this episode than the book had in those scenes for themes?
That's a good question.
Because to me, I want to say the book had kind of less of these.
It's possible
themes.
Because if I think just specifically about the Mormon, missionary with Miller scene, that was different, and I don't think the faith theme was in there as strongly in the book scene as it was in the show. They amped that up by talking about him going on the Nauvoo, which was again not in the book.
Would it be fair to say they amped up the tension from the book too?
Oh yes, I mean for sure, because just putting that whole, again, the Anubis sequence in here, that was a huge amount of the tension. And I don't think there was some tension in the lead up to the firefight, but not as much. The tension mainly came from they knew Miller was following them. But we also knew that it was Miller because they kept referring him to the guy with the hat. So and we knew that Miller was looking for them. So of course, that's less tense because we know it's Miller. And we know that he's not like out to try and kill them. So I think the show scene leading up to the firefight was definitely more tense than the book.
And it's just going to keep ramping up the tension. I'm not sure when it settles down.
Does it?
If it settles down.
Yeah, maybe briefly.
No, it does settle down eventually, but
after season 2 finale.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, because a lot of crazy stuff happens in season 2, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the next half of the book.
Well, next third of the book, quarter of the book, something like that.
And then beyond.
Yeah. So
I mean, the start of season 3 was a real what was it? I want to say splatter.
we were talking earlier about how there's a lot of observation being done.
Yeah.
People, and it was Kenzo and Amos both noticing all these little things. And as we were talking about that, it put me into mind of some of the scenes I've been listening to in Dune, where specifically Paul and Jessica are doing the exact same thing Amos and Kenzo are doing, of spotting like little things. Like at one point, Paul notices an artificial fold or crease in the sleeve of somebody's shirt, telling him that there's a dagger hidden up their sleeve, or an unnatural fold or something like that. And it's just all these little things, and just it's that Benny Gesserit training that Paul was given by his mother that is letting him do this. And it reminds me so much of what we just saw.
So it's
with this episode.
Being in Benny Gesserit training is the same as growing up on the streets of Baltimore.
Close, yes.
Okay.
Although he probably doesn't have nearly as much body control, especially the autonomic system, as like a Benny Gesserit would.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but
I just imagine in that scene with the box that he would 100% take a hatchet to his own arm without any thought.
Amos would not be human. The Gom Jabbar would get him.
I think he just cut his hand off, but yeah.
Probably.
Miller probably wouldn't pass it. Naomi would. Alex, maybe. Holden be snatching that hand out real quick. The toughest Holden's ever been was when he held a gun to Amos's head, and we all knew he wasn't going to pull that trigger.
Look, Holden is tougher.
Yeah, Book Holden is much tougher. And
least
later
so far.
seasons, and Holden gets tougher in later seasons.
Yeah.
It's later Holden that I'm just like,
yeah.
That's
But I
really
think
good acting.
But I think you're right about Naomi, and it's funny because it was reminding me of part of the book. It's a Miller chapter when he's like, you know, meeting these other characters, and he doesn't even know all their names yet, and you know, he quickly picks up that like Amos is the one that has like the I don't remember how he put it with Amos, but basically, you know, he's aware that like Amos has the most like ability like with weapons and just you know, any of that kind of stuff, but he thinks that Naomi has the best instincts.
She's the smartest person in the room.
So I was literally just reading that.
Down.
I was literally just reading the chapter
Pretty
of the
much
box yesterday,
Yeah.
and she said something along the lines of, "You're trapped in here. You have the two choices of either like trying to get out or to wait and spring a trap on the person trapping you, so they don't, you know, harm future people." Like I said, Amos would just cut his hand off and then go after the hunter.
Yeah. Is this your first time reading Dune?
Oh God, no.
Okay. Just checking. This is number 9 or 10 for me.
Ooh.
And I'm only 49 Friday, so
Wow.
yeah, even though I
think
have been
this would
referring to
be-
myself as 50.
I think this would be number 3.
Okay.
I know I read it once way back, and I think I reread it when I went through the whole series.
I was reading it in 5th grade.
Wow.
If the audience can't tell, we're reviewing Dune coming up soon. All 3 versions. David Lynch, and the week after that, we're doing the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries from the year 2000, and then we're doing Denis Villeneuve's masterpiece. Spoiler, I loved it. The 3rd weekend, and we have a guest for each week. So look forward to that.
Okay.
So next episode for Expanse will be Critical Mass.
What's the week after that, you know?
Leviathan Wakes.
Okay.
I wonder where they got that title from.
I don't know. But it sounds familiar. It really does. And I picture it like written in like this magenta pink color for some reason.
All of their titles are like so kind of ridiculous because I could never remember which book is which because all the titles are just like, I don't know.
I know Leviathan Wakes is the first and Leviathan Falls is the last.
Sure, but in between, whatever, you know, it all gets blurry. And
I have
Ty Frank said at one point that basically it was just they picked like a mythical being, and then the second word is them like you know, a verb, them having or doing something, a verb or a noun. They're, you know,
I've never
being, having or doing.
I have no idea what Cibola Burn, if that's even how it's pronounced.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it could be Cibola for all I know.
I don't know what most of them mean.
But I have no idea what that's from. I haven't actually looked up Cibola, but no, I did once and I didn't find anything, but I don't have good Google proof.
They were digging deep for that, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I know Caliban, I know Leviathan. I can't think of any of the other.
Gate, I think.
Abaddon's Gate. Yep, that's that was a demon or something in hell, or some like Prince of Hell or something like that. It was Abaddon.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some good titles. I'll give them that. That's for sure.
Can't keep them straight.
No,
but sure.
And their meaning might be a little esoteric and vague, but
yeah,
and the authors might not even know.
I'm suddenly reminded of book 3 of Wheel of Time. Where the hell's the dragons?
Yeah.
Dragon Reborn.
No dragons in this book.
With the Dragon Reborn titled on a character who's hardly in the book.
Yes. Spoiler. Anyway.
This is
all right. Any final thoughts on episode 8, Salvage?
I really liked it. I think I might watch it again before next week's episodes, just because.
Just us.
Yeah. And yeah, Max?
No.
No. Okay.
Very long pause for the.
Yeah. Makes me
Anyway.
wonder if I'm going to snip that down a couple seconds. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Thank you, audience, for watching. Next week, we will be returning with at least one episode of The Expanse. We might be doing 2, but I can't promise anything. And when we do episode 10, we will have a guest coming back. Wait to see who that is. Thanks for watching. Please leave us a like, a subscribe, and a comment. And don't forget to be awesome.